back, dear viewers. You're still watching The Breakfast Show live on Mile TV International. It's now time for our first and main topic of discussion for today, and we're going to be talking about the anniversary of Prophet Muhammad's birthday, and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has extended his best wishes for Egyptians on the anniversary of Prophet Muhammad's birthday, Al-Mawlid al-Nabawi, and also the occasion is marked in several nations. And to shed more light on this topic, we're most delighted to be joined by Mr. Mohamed Khafeef, and he's a Islamic researcher. First of all, good morning, sir, and thank you so much for joining us and on this very special occasion.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. And first of all, I would like to shed the light on the nature of the celebration, which was very important, that took place yesterday.
The celebration of the birthday of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is in fact a spiritual, social, and a traditional celebration rather than a religious one. This is because there was no mention of it, strictly speaking, directly in the Islamic jurisprudence, but it is a matter of spirit. We Egyptians love Prophet Muhammad ﷺ very, very much, among the peoples who love him very much. For religious and spiritual reasons, not political reasons. The Fatimids, when they ruled Egypt, were the initiators of the celebration. For them, it had some political side, but for the Egyptians, it was not. And the celebration itself was an expression of love of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in two ways. First, in gratitude for what he brought us, which is Islam, and all its benefits and rewards in this life and the afterlife. And on the other hand, we love him as a person. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was not a tape recorder just relating tenets of Islam and ordainments and so forth. He was a person, a very kindly person, who treated Muslims as well as non-Muslims very well. So these are the two sides because of which we celebrate this occasion.
Mr. Mohammed, also, if you can tell us about why do some communities mark this occasion with some rituals and traditions and others don't?
Well, some communities prefer to stick to the letter of the jurisprudence rather than its spirit. Mm-hmm. So when they say there is no mention of the celebration of the birthday of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in the Quran or in the Sunnah, then we should not celebrate it. Mm-hmm. If we look at, or if we address the spirit of Islam itself, we are, I can't say we are ordered to love Prophet Muhammad, because we do love him without being ordered to. He is in our hearts, he is in our lives, he is in amongst us all the time with his teachings and with his pleasant and benevolent personality. Mm-hmm. So we do celebrate, although it is not strictly mentioned in the jurisprudence. Mm-hmm. Others stick very much to the letter of the law. Mm-hmm. And actually it is a problem which we face in many aspects of religion, which we call literalism. Sticking to the letter rather than looking at the spirit. Mm.
Talking about the celebration itself, yes, of course, it is something very important to celebrate, but how should we celebrate? I mean, it's not about the sweets or halawat al-mulad, as we call it, the sweets that the traditional sweets that we used to buy during this important occasion. But the way we are celebrating, how can we take this opportunity, this day, talking about the teachings of Islam, talking about treating people, talking about ethics, a lot of things among people, among our children. What are we doing exactly?
Well, let us take it in steps. If we address the adult bracket of the Muslim society, what you said is exactly correct. On that day, we should remember and remind ourselves and renew our knowledge of Prophet Muhammad's lives, his teachings, and the example he set to us as Muslims. As for the younger generations, it is not a must, but it is a pleasant thing to make them feel that this is a happy occasion. So that when they grow enough mentally and intellectually, they would start celebrating it intellectually as well as socially and so forth. For the younger children, you embed in children that Prophet Muhammad is the loved one, and we celebrate his birthday in love and in devotion and in gratitude. Children cannot understand jurisprudence and the Quran and the Sunnah, but they will grow up knowing that Prophet Muhammad is our beloved Prophet.
Mr. Mohammed, from an expert point of view, what are the commended outcomes of marking this very special occasion?
Well, this occasion is an opportunity actually for us to restudy and to reminisce and to read and to discuss and to explain and explore all the sides of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ's life, and all those ideas are supposed to reflect on our behavior, on our attitudes, and because Islam is not only prayer and fasting and so forth. Islam is a societal religion as well as it is an afterworldly one. So when we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ in his household, between his friends, between the believers in general, with the outside world, all those are examples that we should learn from, and unfortunately we do not learn enough. Actually, we should be more tenacious and more careful about indulging more in the spirit and the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ.
So from here, talking about the role of the society, for the role of the family, the role of individuals, definitely each one has a role.
Absolutely. When we talk about the society, we talk mainly about the religious bodies and about the media, which are the two entities that are most involved in this celebration. Of course, it is expected from the media to be a reflection of what we just said, that the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ should be portrayed in a way that is a lesson to us and a reference to us in all our dealings and all our transactions in life. In the meanwhile, the media and the religious bodies have to warn and have to take heed of some of the actions that are not very religious that are done during this celebration, and it should make people aware that this is the right thing to do, this is not the right thing to do, and so forth. The family is a miniature of the state or of the community, and the parents in general should do the same to their children and start teaching them, even trying to make the children read. There are simple books about the life of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and about his achievement, about his behavior, about his manners, and so forth. All this should be in focus in this day or during that week, for example.
Mm-hmm. Also, Mr. Mohammed, there was a big celebration yesterday attended by President Al-Fattah al-Sisi, and also that was held in cooperation with the Ministry of Religious Endowments. President Al-Fattah al-Sisi has called during his speech for following the Prophet's steps in working. How do you see the significance of this?
Well, if we refer first to the Holy Quran, we shall find that there are dozens of verses in the Holy Quran that say, those who believe and do good deeds. Those who believe and do good deeds. Almost never does the Quran mention belief without mentioning something about doing good deeds. Mm-hmm. So to do is to believe, and to believe is to do. Mm-hmm. And this is the example that Prophet Muhammad ﷺ has set for us. He has not stopped doing some work for the Muslim community since the day he was almost a young man, even before prophethood, until the last day of his life. And he would not ever allow Muslims to do things or to do work for him that he should do or that he decides that he should do. Setting this example, of course, should be something that is in our everyday lives. And actually, President Sisi has chosen a very important and a very wise route to address this issue, because now is the time to work in our society, in our times, where everybody is looking at us and evaluating what we do and evaluating what we should achieve and so forth.
I would like to add for the practical life or working, I want to add also talking about manners and behaviors, and this is another important part that is an integral part of the society. And we have seen many negative signs taking place in our society, unfortunately. And we always stop at such deeds and we say that it has nothing to do with our religion, for example. I'm just talking about in general, the society in general, not about certain or significant parts in particular.
Well, you have raised a very critical issue here, because unfortunately we are not giving enough attention and enough study and enough review of the behavior of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ on the various levels. Very rarely do we hear somebody who talks about how Prophet Muhammad treated his wives, how he treated his children, and there were many, how he treated his close friends, even how he smiled, how he joked, because this is the spirit of Islam. It is not just, again, it's not just prayer and fasting and so forth. It is a bond between human beings, their society, community, and God. If any link of this bond is broken, then everything else gets broken. So from this place and this time, I would very much recommend that we would start giving more attention to Prophet Muhammad's life situations and his manners, his morals, his behaviors, his attitude towards even his enemies. If we address the history of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ with his enemies, we shall discover that so many things are misunderstood about Islam and misinterpreted and of course misused by the enemies of Islam. All this can be covered and can be understood and explained to those who don't understand, even Muslims or non-Muslims. And I think it will reflect very beneficially on everybody.
Also, if you can tell us, sir, about your recommendations for how can the media send a message of tolerance and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad on this occasion?
Let us agree that direct advice is not always effective. Not everybody enjoys being advised directly or instructed directly. And this is exactly the very role of media. We haven't seen, let's say, for example, we haven't seen a religious series for quite a while now. We haven't seen religious movies for quite a while now. Even in talk shows. Talk shows should be, in my humble opinion, should be a mix between dialogue and specific incidents that are performed in one way or other, so that they can be reachable to the simple person and to the person who wants to learn and enjoy in the meanwhile, and to celebrate the great history which we have and which I think we are not giving enough attention to.
Talking also about, as you mentioned, our new generation. This is the most important part. I mean, they are the leaders of the future. If we can work more on them and take this important day just to start with our children. As you mentioned, how can we do this? I mean, I'm not talking about the religion. I'm talking about the manners, the behavior among kids, among each other. Many things actually that if we start working on, starting from very early age, definitely we will cultivate this in the future.
Let me tell you about something that I envy the Western society about, which may seem quite naive, but it is not. Bedtime stories. Bedtime stories are very, very, how would you call it, fertile, is a very fertile environment in which to embed into children morals without don't do, no. We don't even have to mention Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his friends by name. We could relate to them stories about their manners and their courage, about their generosity, about their kindness, in the form of stories that are read or recited to children, not necessarily at bedtime, but I'm just giving an example of the concept itself. We don't have time, unfortunately, in this time and conditions. Many parents now don't have the time to sit with their children, even to talk, everyday talk. I doubt very much that many families have the chance to have one meal per day together. All this is something that is affecting the new generations very, very negatively. And I think it's about time that we should start, because, as you said, those are the future. Those are us tomorrow.
Right. Something like being the model, as you mentioned.
Absolutely.
This is the most important part, because if I'm going to ask my child to do something and I'm doing the opposite, definitely she's not, or he is not going to follow. He's going to follow the mom, the dad, and they are not going to follow what I'm saying, actually.
Absolutely, because teaching by example, it is sometimes called teaching by silence, which is teaching by example. I don't preach, I do. And children very much like to imitate their parents, even at a very young stage in life. And one of the things we forget, that the habits, good or bad, that are embedded in children between the ages of 2 and 5, never can be changed. The idea that Olivia is still just a child, don't try to correct, or don't. This is the worst thing that we can possibly do.
So you mentioned something very important, talking about the social life of the Prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him. Let me ask you here, tell us something about his relation with his kids, for example, how he treated children, if we're talking about children.
Well, of course, this is a matter that requires quite a few episodes, but let us start.
To summarize.
Summarily, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was the idol of children. He loved his children and the Muslims' children, and he used to play with them whenever, even in the streets, in the houses of his friends, in his own house. Unfortunately, he didn't have male children. They died very young, but he had female children, and he was the essence of kindness and love incarnate. Never was he the cruel father, nor was he the over strict person. On the contrary, he was their refuge in problems. He was their protection in case of any kind of danger. He was, of course, their mentor in everything they did in their lives. This of course applies also to his wives. I wish to take this opportunity to address Prophet Muhammad as a husband in a complete episode. One day we may be able to do it, because this is a very important lesson. And I would like to quote a wise man here who was asked by a younger person, give me some kind of advice by which I would bring up my children. He told him, how old is your child? He told him, he is 9 months old. He told him, you are too late. It begins with choosing his mother.
Right.
Mr. Mohamed Khafeef, Islamic researcher, thank you so much for your insight, and thank you so much for being with us on The Breakfast Show on this very special occasion.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you.
And dear viewers, now we move on to a short break, and then we'll be back to resume the remaining segments of The Breakfast Show live on Nile TV International.